Hello wine people, welcome to the video on Germany. This video is part of the Thursday Wine Study and Support Program and it's meant for wine people that are preparing for their WSET Level 3 wine course and exam. In this video, I will be explaining everything that is relevant for you to know about Germany for your Level 3 course preparation. I'll be talking about climate. Climate is very important in Germany. Germany is in Northern Europe, because of the northern latitude and because it doesn't really have a big ocean to moderate the climate. It has a cool continental climate, so there's a lot of factors in the vineyard that are really helping the grapes to ripen properly here. So you'll see a few slides on climate and grape growing, grape varieties. We'll be focusing on Riesling, but I'll be mentioning other important grapes that you need to know. Wine laws and labels can be very confusing in Germany, so I'll explain that. I will mention and explain what is VDP. Winemaking is not really explained in the section of Germany, but we'll be focusing on the two most important grapes are Riesling for the whites and Pinot Noir for the reds. So you generally need to know the winemaking for Riesling and for Pinot Noir, but specifically for Riesling in Germany, it is the different styles of Riesling that depend on the level of ripeness of Riesling and the sugars if the wine is produced in a dry or sweet style. So I'll explain that. And then on the end, I'll be mentioning all the appellations, all the regions and their important information about them. So a lot of things to cover. Let's go. So climate, Northern Europe Germany has a cool continental climate, but it has a very long growing season because the rain usually falls in the winter and in the summer, and there's less rain in the autumn when the grapes are being picked. So this long growing season enables grapes with different levels of ripeness, which is important for the predicate levels in Germany. I'll explain that. Riesling is susceptible to noble rot. There's many rivers in Germany that create humidity that is favorable for the noble rot development. Cool continental climate, so really all the factors in the vineyard combined, they really add up and help for the grapes in Germany to ripen properly. So steep slopes, south-southeast facing slopes, getting more sunshine into the grapes, rocky slate soils, so well-drained soils that retain the heat, they radiate the heat, reflect sunlight into the grapes. Southerly aspect, like I mentioned, rivers increase the temperature in the vineyard during the day. They help with spring frost, which is a big issue in a cool continental climate. They bring the temperature during the day. They also increase the humidity, which helps with noble rot development, and they also reflect sunlight into grapes, additionally helping with the ripeness. So a lot of factors here that is important to note and to understand. Most of the vineyards in Germany, they have very steep slopes and you need to hand harvest, but it's not only that you need to hand harvest. Usually these slopes are so steep that you actually need to be attached to a machine that's called a winch. So it's like a strap around you. So you pick the grapes with this because otherwise you would probably fall. And also the vines on these steep slopes, they do not really have a training system. They're individual vines that also are tied on the top in order to expose the grapes to the sunshine to help them ripe. Many rivers in Germany, Mosel, Nahe, Rhine and Main, very important for the noble rot development, helping with the spring frost issues, also reflecting the sunshine and all these things that I mentioned. Taunus Hills. Taunus Hills are the hills that are located north of the region of Rheingau. They protect the region from the cold winds that are coming from the north and produce conditions together with the river Rhine to produce more riper and fuller style of Riesling in Rheingau. Hardat Mountains are the continuation of Vosges Mountains from Alsace, and are protecting the region of Pfalz in the south of Germany and creating more warmer and drier weather conditions that are more favorable for Pinot Noir to grow there. Frost is a big issue in cool continental climate, and then the rivers help to mitigate the issues with frost and also steepness of the slope. Many grapes are grown in Germany. The most important white grape variety is Riesling, so we'll be focusing on that. But there's other grape varieties that are grown in Germany, like Müller-Thurgau. It is the second most important, second most grown white grape variety in Germany. It's also called Rivaner. Before it was used a lot for its productivity, but it was mostly used for simple, inexpensive, fruity, sweet wines that gave a lot of bad reputation for Germany even today. Sylvaner is a grape variety that is specifically grown in Franken. I'll be explaining that. Pinot Gris and Pinot Blanc are grown in Germany. They're important here, and they are called, Pinot Gris is called Rolander or Braunburgunder, where Pinot Blanc is called Weißburgunder. Black grape varieties, the most important one is Germany, and in Germany Pinot Noir is called Spätburgunder. Other grape varieties are grown, black grape varieties are grown in Germany, like Dornfelder, which produces deep color, fruity red wines, Portugieser, Trollinger, Schwarz Riesling, which is Pinot Meunier, are also mentioned for Germany. Riesling, the most important grape variety in general. It is aromatic, expressive grape variety that the style really depends on the level of ripeness, climate and winemaking. Riesling in Germany can produce wines that are dry or lusciously sweet, wines that have green or citrus fruit, citrus or stone fruit, and then stone or tropical fruit, or lusciously sweet wines that are affected by noble rot. So that is what is the most important to understand about winemaking of Riesling in Germany. It's a grape variety that can age well on lees. It's a grape variety that can age for decades in a bottle. Doesn't really age in oak. It can age in a used oak, which would give it a little bit more complexity. It doesn't really go through malolactic conversion, because malolactic conversion will lower the acidity, which is not expected to be done in Riesling, and it would also mask the primary aromas of Riesling. So Riesling in Germany Riesling is a floral grape variety. It's an aromatic grape variety that has this beautiful kind of white blossom character. It can range, the ripeness can range from green to tropical fruit, and it has a very specific aroma of petrol. It's susceptible to noble rot. So wines that are categorized as Bernauschlese and especially Trockenbauschlese are affected by noble rot and are lusciously sweet. Predicate wine levels with looking at alcohol levels will give you a good indication of the style. In regards to the predicate levels will give you the indication of ripeness, where the alcohol level will give you an indication of residual sugar in the wine. So if you see, for example, a cabinet wine that is 12% alcohol, it's going to be dry, where if you see a cabinet that is 10% alcohol, it means that there's some residual sugar in the wine. Okay. So Müller-Thurgau, the second most planted white grape variety, but it's in decline. It's also called Rivaner. This is a crossing between Riesling and Madeleine Royale. It was developed to produce wines that are same quality of Riesling, but that can ripen earlier because of the cool climate in Germany. but it produces simple and generic wines in general, lacks acidity and the flavor intensity of Riesling. It produces simple wines, especially in the past. It was responsible for wines that is called Liebfraumilch, that really gave a bad reputation for German wines, even today. Sylvaner, third most planted white grape variety, specifically grown, or the most important region for Sylvaner is Franken. Produces dry and sweet wines. It has this character of producing less fruit in the wine, but more kind of earthy character, and can produce high quality wines when grown in the best areas in Franken, on steep slopes, well exposed and well drained soils. Spätburgunder or Pinot Noir is the third most planted grape variety in general. The best areas to grow Pinot Noir is in warmer areas of Germany, which is Pfalz and Baden. Can produce dry, light, simple red wines, but can also produce dry wines that age in oak and have concentration and potential to age in the bottle and develop tertiary character. Wine labels and wine laws and labels. Germany can be very, very technical. So what you need to know about Germany is indication of where the grapes are coming from, indication of style, indication of quality, and ripeness levels. So first of all, there's PDO and PGI wines and wines with no geographical indication. Wines that are PGI are going to be called a Landwein. Wines with no geographical indication will just say Deutscher Wein. Wines with, and this wine, PGI and no GI wines are really not important in Germany. Almost all the wines in Germany are produced as PDO wines. In order to be a PDO wine, the wine needs to come from one of the 13 regions. The wines are either produced as Qualitätswein or Prädikatswein. The difference is Qualitätswein are mainly used for wines that are produced in a dry style versus a Prädikatswines that are usually produced with a residual sugar in the wine. Qualitätswein, in order to determine if the wines are dry or sweet, will be indicated by the terms trocken, which means dry, or halbtrocken, which means off-dry or medium sweet. Halbtrocken has this kind of negative synonym to the term, so a fine herb term can be used instead, but it's not regulated by law where trocken and halbtrocken are. In order to give you an indication of where the wines are coming from, on German labels you can see the label can have the name, PDO wines will have the name of the region, like Mosel, and then village and or vineyard. So example of Mosel label would be Mosel, on the Mosel region on the label, plus the name of the village, which is in this case Pisporter. The name of the village is Pisport, but Pisporter means from the village of Pisport, and then the name of the vineyard would be after the village. So in this case, Golbtrochen. So this is the region, village, vineyard. But the issue with the vineyards, which usually, if the wines are coming from a single vineyard, that would usually indicate high quality wines. But in Germany, these vineyards can be very small or can be enormously big. So they're not really a good indication of quality. So a better indication would actually be the price of the wine. Higher price wines, which means that the area is more smaller, where if the wine is coming from a single vineyard, but it's a cheap wine, it usually indicates higher quantity of lower quality grapes. In order to address the quality of the wines produced in Germany, VDP organization was created, which is an independent organization of independent producers that are focusing on producing the best dry, but also wines with some sweetness in them. Okay. So VDP it stands for Verband Deutscher Prädikatsvertünger. It's an independent wine producer organization that focuses on quality and vineyard sites. The idea is to produce the best wines in Germany. They can produce dry wines. Their best wines, which is kind of Grand Cru wines, are going to be indicated. They're going to be Qualitats wine, which are dry wines, and they're going to have this GG sign on the bottle. The wine will also have this kind of a logo, which is a eagle with grapes, and the term Grosse Gewachs will indicate that the wines are dry. If you see, for example, a GG wine that is with a predicate levels, that would indicate that the wine has residual sugar. Predicate wine levels, there's 6 of them. So this is something that can be on the label, and the predicate wine levels are Kabinett, Spätlese, Auslese, Bernauslese or BE, ice wine, and Trockenbauschlese or TBI. So the first one, what you need to understand about predicate levels is that they are based on the level of grape ripeness. They're not based on the residual sugar in the wine. This means that the first 3 levels, Kabinett, Spätlese, and Auslese, can be dry, can be sweet, where Bernauslese, ice wine, and Trockenbauschlese will always be sweet. Kabinett will be the least ripe, and it will produce light wines with a green fruit, and that is usually balanced with some residual sugar, because these wines are really high in acidity because they're the least ripe. Spätlese will indicate that the wines are more riper than Kabinett wines, more citrus fruit and some stone fruit. Auslese, even more riper than Spätlese, extra ripe bunches or berries, and the wines can have effect of noble rot. Again, all these 3 first categories can be dry, can be sweet. A good indication of if the wine is dry or sweet will be the level of alcohol. Usually, Kabinett wines, if they're dry, they're 12. Spätlese, if it's dry, it's around 13, and Spätlese is around 14. So if you find these wines that have lower amounts of alcohol, this will indicate that the wines have residual sugar. Where if you find a Kabinett that is, for example, 12 and a half, it will indicate that the wines are dry. And also what you need to remember, especially with Rieslings, is that it has very high acidity. So this high acidity will mask if the wine has some residual sugar. Bernauslese, noble rot, is optional. So the wines do not have to be affected by noble rot, but the wines are always going to be sweet. They're going to be dominated by tropical fruit, and the wines will usually have very low levels of alcohol, around 5-6% alcohol, because of the high sugar concentration. Ice wine has the same amount of sugar, the same amount of ripeness as Bernauslese. The wines will be dominated by the varietal character. They will not be affected by noble rot because they're going to be made by the process of freezing the grapes on the vine and concentrating the sugar. And Trockenbauschlese will be the most ripe grapes of all of them, and the wines are always going to be made by, the grapes are going to be affected by noble rot. These are the most expensive, sweet, lusciously sweet wines in Germany, and they're not made every year, only in the best vintages. Winemaking, I already mentioned what is important for winemaking for you to know for Riesling. It is the levels of ripeness of the grapes, the levels of if the wines are dry or sweet. It's aromatic grape variety, protective winemaking with lease aging, stainless steel, low fermentation temperatures, can use oak, but used oak. For Pinot Noir, you need to understand Pinot Noir winemaking, not specifically for Germany, but in general. What is important for, or what is specific for Germany for winemaking is the terms Sus Reserve and chaptalization. For you to understand what's the difference, chaptalization, the purpose is to add the sugar before the fermentation in order to increase the alcohol in the wine. So this is not allowed for predicate wines. It is allowed for qualitas wines. Versus for actually chaptalization is allowed for qualitas wines. It's not allowed for predicate wines. Where Sus Reserve is actually adding unfermented grape juice in order to increase the sweetness level in the final wine. And this is allowed for qualitas wine, and it's also allowed for predicates wines, but it's usually not done, because when when wines are made in a sweet style for predicates levels, it is usually the stopping the fermentation winemaking technique that is used in order to produce sweet wines of predicate levels. Different levels of sweetness and ripeness. Like I mentioned, it's very important to understand how it affects the style of wine. Appellations, regions that are important to remember, and the villages in the region that are important to remember, more for multiple choice questions, but also in a short written answer question you can get a question, maybe, name 2 villages in Mosul, for example. So the appellations are the region of Mosul and the villages of Pisport, Bergkastel and Wehen. In Nahe it's Schloss Bockenheim and Bad Kreuznach. In Rheingau it's Johannisberg, Rudesheim, Hochheim and Assmannhausen. I mean, this is the information that especially WSET students do not like, but the way to remember this is to write it down, see it several times, and it will stick. In Rheinhessen, it's Niersten and Worms. In Pfalz, it's Forst and Dedesheim. In Baden is Kaisertull and Tuniberg, and in Franken it's Würzburg. My apologies for my German pronunciation. In Mosul, what is important to note is that Mosul joins the Rhine River in the north. It is the region, Mosul is located in more western part of Germany. It's one of the most coolest areas in Germany. The Rhine River, the Mosel River goes from south to north, and it enters into the Rhine River in the north. Saar and Ruwer are tributaries of smaller rivers of Mosel, and they're located in the southern part of Mosel. So Riesling here is the most important grape variety. Middle Mosel, in the middle of Mosel, is the most important area in Germany, in Mosel, that produces the best white wines in Mosel area. Vineyards that are located here are Pisport, Bergkastel and Wehen. So steep slopes, slate soils help Riesling here to ripen properly. Mosel produces the lightest styles of Riesling in Germany. That's the way that maybe you would recognize it on a blind tasting. Sparkling wines are also produced, and GG wines, Grosse Gewachs wines. So in order to produce Grosse Gewachs wines, every region has grapes that are approved to produce Grosse Gewachs wines. So for Mosel, this is Riesling. Riesling is the only grape that is allowed. Nahe is a region that is located between Mosel in the west and Rheinhessen in the east. The river here is Nahe. That's why the region is called Nahe. Villages Schloss Bockenheim and Bad Kreuznach. Riesling again is the most important grape variety. GG wines are made from Riesling. Nahe is a region that would be described in style that is between Mosel and Rheingau in regards to the ripeness and richness of wines. Rheingau. So this is a region that is more located north of Mosel and Nahe. It's a premium region, focuses on premium wines, north bank of Rhine and Main. Rhine is the main river, where Main is located in the eastern part. Here the vineyards are facing south on steep slopes. You have the Taunus Hills in the north protecting the region from the cold winds. Also the river Rhine is much wider river than Mosel, for example, or Nahe, which additionally helps with the ripeness of the grapes. The villages here are Johannisberg, Rudesheim, Hockenheim, and Assmannhausen. Assmannhausen is especially important for production of Pinot Noir. GG wines that can be produced here are made from Riesling and Pinot Noir. Rheinhessen, located east of Nahe and south of Rheingau. This is the largest wine region that produces black and white grapes. Müller-Thurgau is actually the most grown grape variety here, together with Riesling for the whites, and for reds it's actually Dornfelder, Portugieser, and Pinot Noir. So Pinot Noir is not the most important black grape variety here. But for GG wines, Riesling and Pinot Noir are the grape varieties that are allowed. Villages here are Worms and Niersen, also called Rheinstrasse. So Rheinstrasse is that central area of Rheinhessen that has the steepest slopes and produces the most rich, powerful white and red wines. Pfalz is located south of Rheinhessen. It is the second largest region in Germany. It has the Hardat Mountains on the west side, which is the continuation of Vosges Mountains, so makes this protection of the Hardat Mountains, and together with more southerly latitude, makes this region warmer and drier, more suitable for black grape varieties. Warm and dry region, Müller-Thurgau, Pinot Blanc and Pinot Gris are grown here. Black grape varieties actually make 40% of the wines that are produced here. The villages of Forst and Dedesheim. There's also this area, Mittelhardat, that produces the best wines. And grape varieties that are used for Grosse Gewachs wines are Riesling, Pinot Gris, and Pinot Noir. Baden is the most southerly region. It is located on the opposite side of Pfalz. Most southerly and the most warmest region in Germany, produces fullest and ripest wines here. Third largest wine region, and it's a very long region. Along Rhine up to the Swiss border from north to south. Villages of Kaisertuchel and Tuniberg across Colmar. So Colmar is the village in Alsace. So just to give you an idea of where these villages are located, there's an area on extinct volcano which produces soils that are well drained and warm soils, suitable for Pinot Noir, is mostly planted, and but GG wines, Grosse Gewachs wines, are made from Riesling, Pinot Noir, but also from a wide range of different grape varieties. And the final region is Franken. Franken is located more north and east of Baden. Sylvaner is the most important grape variety, so it's quite cool in Franken. So it helps that Sylvaner is early flowering and early ripening grape variety, but it requires the warmest sites in order to ripen properly. Sites that are warm, dry, and south facing. The most important village is Würzburg. Produces wines mostly that are dry and earthy, so with less fruit. There's a very specific bottle that is flask shaped. It's called Box Bottle. That is very specific for Franken Sylvaner. And the GG wines here are produced from Sylvaner, but from many other grape varieties: Riesling, Pinot Gris, Weissburgunder, many of them. Okay, and that's it. Wine people, long video. Germany, very important. I hope these videos are helping. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay thirsty and like this guy, Weiss.